Welcome, welcome. So today I want to talk about balancing feminine and masculine energies. So first off, what is feminine and masculine energy? Feminine energy is the energy of yin. Masculine is the energy of yang. Most of us have seen the yin and yang symbol, especially if you're from the 90s. You have seen that symbol showing the balance of the two. Some examples of feminine energy would be the energy of giving, the mother, the sensuality, the softness. Some examples of masculine energy would be the provider, the doer, the goal setter. And it's important to note here that neither is better than the other. I know I always joke with my husband that feminine energy is better, but truly neither energy is better than the other. And what I find is that we're currently in a movement right now of feminine energy. And although well placed and well intentioned, the movement itself, the energy of feminine without masculine, can be quite damaging. So I decided to dedicate today's episode to balancing both energies and what that might look like. So what does imbalance look like with feminine and masculine energies? An imbalanced feminine would be a person who is described as overly sensitive or overly emotional. They might feel overwhelmed by the world around them. They might feel that they just can't take the energy out there at this time in the world, that everything feels so crushing. They might be quick to emotion, maybe laughing one minute, crying the next. And another example would be consistently nesting in their home. So always needing to decorate and redecorate and, start off with, bullet journaling and then calendars and then vision boards and then all of those types of things, almost to the point where nothing ever gets done because they're always planning. An example of an imbalanced masculine energy would be the person who writes the list and then starts going on it no matter what, refuses to enjoy company or appreciate time for rest. They just go, and they're constantly moving and shaking. Even if they're distressed and tired, they're just continuing to move forward. Even if it's scatterbrained, they don't care. They're just getting things done over and over again. Sleep isn't important. They're quick to anger, and just completely lost. They never take time to plan anything. They just do. And for that reason, they end up being less organized than they could have been and therefore less productive. So those would be some examples of imbalanced in the feminine and masculine. So to give you an example of myself in the feminine and masculine energies, when I was somewhere in my early 20s, I want to say, I discovered a book called The Secret. All of you have heard of it, I'm sure. And that book was dedicated to the law of attraction and how you can manifest what you would like in your life based on your mindset. And now this was the first time that I had ever been introduced to anything like this. Growing up in a small rural community with a very Catholic background, I had never considered that magic exists and that you can think and expand and the universe will reciprocate what it is that you're thinking and expanding on. So this was a beautiful concept to me. But one thing that, looking back on it now, was lacking in that new agey sort of concept was the idea of doing. So there was a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, a lot of shifting your mindset, all so important. But there was an essence of losing out on the doing. And because of that, I became extremely feminine, and it was an important shift at the time. But I was missing a masculine. So I kind of became this, what I called hippie, where I was constantly researching everything that has to do with, universal law of attraction, mindset. I became engrossed in, eating fully organic and eating non-GMO, and I refused to listen to heavy music, or I quit drinking, and all of these things. Got a lotus tattoo and the whole thing, which I love, but I digress. I did all of these things in an effort to attract the life that I wanted. And what I found was that there was a piece missing, and I became very emotional, very sensitive. And I remember feeling like my own mind, my own emotions were like a tidal wave. I could picture this dark black sea well up, as tall as a building, and come crashing towards me. And that was all of my emotions. And I felt so insignificant under them. I felt like I couldn't get myself out of this loop, this drowning under emotion and sadness and all of these things. I felt drowning is the word. I felt like I was drowning. And I can't recall who said it to me, but someone said to me, have you ever considered stopping digging into who you want to be and starting to accept who you are? And now that concept is more of a masculine energy. That concept of no longer emotion, like falling into your emotion, and no longer researching and creating and searching into creativity and all of those types of things, and instead starting to accept who you are. And that's country music and old cars and drinks around the campfire and all of that is more masculine. So when that became something that I started to consider, that I no longer needed to dive into this sea anymore, and instead just kind of consider who am I and what do I like, I started to find a more balanced version of myself. I stopped feeling like it was crushing me, and I felt more at peace with whom that I was. And after all of that, I realized that some of that diving, some of that needing to be feminine, it was in fact what was keeping me stuck from the rest of what it is that I wanted, because I refused to entertain anything that might be a more Rajasic energy or a more heat energy. And I felt that if I continued to be water, that eventually I would find peace. And in fact, it was the acceptance of fire, of that heat energy, of that move and shake, that started to make me feel more at peace. So ways that I balanced some of that feminine and masculine energy. Well, one, acceptance of whom I was, allowing that to be okay. Acceptance of my environment, no matter what it was, and allowing that to be okay. That was huge. Meditation and yoga, but not to be confused with just yin yoga, just restorative yoga, or just vinyasa yoga, or just hatha yoga, but instead allowing it all to be okay at different points in your life. And meditation, not just sitting there with your legs crossed on a pillow, connecting with your angels, but instead allowing your body to be what it is at the time. So accepting the present moment as it is. Those were huge. Carving out intentional time for fun and craziness and going out with your girls and putting on your high heels, or carving out intentional time to go motorsporting. For me, that's snowmobiling and hitting the trails and campfires and all of that. Carving out intentional time for baths, for relaxation, for self-grooming and masks and skincare regimes and all of that good stuff. But you see, I'm drawing from different styles of energy. So not labeling anymore what you think is good and what you think is bad. No longer labeling, oh, an enlightened spirit would drink tea and never drink again. But instead knowing when it's appropriate to drink tea and when it's appropriate to just have the damn beer. or whatever it is that you like. When you release your judgment and just let everything be as it is, and you carve out time for both, intentional time carved out for both, that's when you truly can start to feel this sense of balance. And what happened with me was that when I started to be okay with some of the things that I had labeled as bad, more masculine style things, that is when this law of attraction stuff that I loved so dearly when I was 21 started to actually work for me. And that's when things started to flow, this balance of the yin and the yang, was when I allowed both to be okay. And the surprising one that will seem counterintuitive is leaning in. So leaning in to your masculine energy, so your goal orientation and your go, 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 or leaning in to your feminine energy and the emotions and the feelings and the spinning and the releasing and the giving. When you lean into them intentionally, it is important that you are leaning into them intentionally. When you lean into it, you allow it to be okay and accept it, which is a form of non-judgment. So when you lean in and say, I am this, I am more feminine in nature, or you lean in and you say, I am this, I am more masculine in nature, you are taking the judgment off of yourself and allowing the present moment to be as it is. When you allow the present moment to be as it is, that's when kind and compassionate change can then follow through. But if you instead resonated with one of my earlier examples and said, oh, I'm that, I'm definitely, too feminine or too masculine, you are blocking yourself from being able to find that balance because you are labeling and judging yourself as bad. You are slapping yourself on the wrist and saying, no, I did bad. I became this way and that's bad and I now need to be better. That will not work. I promise it won't. But if you lean in and say, I am this energy, and you accept it as it is, then there is now room in your mind and in your body to start to allow these new concepts in. So setting aside and carving time for a more masculine project or a more feminine project, it's now appropriate for you to do so because it's coming from a place of love and kindness. So some example words of what I believe a feminine, masculine, balanced person might identify with would be self-awareness, a person who knows their body deeply. It would be a person who is at peace, who no longer feels that they need to be better in some way or the other. Open-mindedness, open to all the possibilities of their life, no matter what they are, without judgment or labeling. Someone who is pragmatic, who's practical, but practical in a way that allows both to be true. Most of all, somebody who doesn't take life too seriously. Someone who can have the emotional fit and say, you know what, I needed that. And someone who can go out and have fun and goof off with friends and say, you know, this is part of my healing in this way, or this is part of what I needed today. So just not taking it too seriously, allowing what is to just be is. And loving all of yourself. Someone who loves all of themselves, their emotions, their isms, their habits. That would be an example of somebody who is balanced. And to draw it full circle from when I was around 21 and looking at the law of attraction and all of those sorts of things, I went very quote unquote woo-woo at first in order to balance all of my masculine energies. Then I became very, very masculine, and I became very goal-oriented, and I was always needing to be better and do better, and that was more masculine. To coming back now, where I'm far less of a hippie than I used to be, far less, but yet more at peace, more kind and more compassionate than I ever used to be either. And that has perpetuated so many beautiful attractions in my life and so many amazing things that have just popped up, become easy as opposed to hard. And it was the balance and the marrying of those two energies and allowing them both to be there and allowing them both to be true and allowing them both to be part of you, because they are. Both are part of you and both deserve your time and attention. So to finish off with a quote from Dan Brown. The ancients envisioned their world in two halves, masculine and feminine. Their gods and goddesses worked to keep the balance of power, yin and yang. When male and female were balanced, there was harmony in the world. When they were unbalanced, there was chaos. Dan Brown. So I hope you found today's episode enlightening and educational. And I hope that it gave you a glimpse into what it is to no longer need to have a persona or specific way that you are, but instead to be genuinely yourself. Because the genuine self is the balanced self. Go out there today and live free, everybody.